Hello there, welcome to Bentley Auckland and welcome to New Zealand, the new Bentley Bentayga. In motoring journalists speak, it's sort of a facelift, but that doesn't feel right because there's over 1,000 new parts in place. And to help explain them, I'd like to welcome our mate Derek Bennett. He's the brand manager at Bentley Auckland, mate. Thank you very much, Derek.
Thank you.
The new Bentayga. I know you're excited about this car.
I am. Well, you said it's a facelift, but I would go as far as saying it's almost as far as you could go before it's an entirely new model, this car.
Yes, look, the oily bits are familiar,
yes.
But there's, as I said, 1,000 new pieces. But I've got to come with the bit that I get excited about, because straight away the face, it's you could say a facelift.
It is, well, yeah, maybe facelift, but if you look at the front of this car and you compare it to the previous one, it is entirely different. It's got more in common with the Continental GT.
Yeah, when I say facelift, I mean it in the sense that it looks so different at the front. And I love this cut crystal look in the glass, which is brought over from the Conti GT.
That's right, the whiskey tumbler effect was this in here. This was sort of modelled around whiskey tumblers.
It's real crystal, isn't it?
Yeah, basically it's a crystal effect. Beautiful at night when it's just sort of resting. Really
just
lovely.
quietly is beautiful now.
Yes.
And we've chatted about this. It's more svelte at the front. It's not so bluff, is it?
That's right. The front of the previous car had a slightly more sort of, it looked up at you a little bit more, whereas this car's got more of a flat front to it. So actually, the side profile.
Here's one we prepared earlier.
Oh look, there's one there.
Yeah, conveniently.
How about that?
Yeah, so here's the old one. Still a handsome car. It's amazing how this car sort of grew on us, didn't it, over the years?
That's right. And this car, if you look at this, had the eyebrow front. You see this eyebrow here? And that's what they introduced on the Continental GT after the first, so the Generation 2 GT had this eyebrow. This is the washer jet, which not a lot of people knew, but that actually comes out on stalks. So that was the previous design, okay, with this eyebrow front. And if you look at the new car here, it now goes back over the lamps again.
Starting to see how big the changes are.
Oh yeah, that's right.
The bonnet, everything's different there. And it's quite good to have the comparison.
That's right. And another thing that you don't immediately notice but realise there's no radiator shell.
Ah, right. So the bonnet stops and starts there.
Yeah, it stops right at the grille. And over here, you've got a radiator shell.
Right.
So then those changes really start to jump out.
Okay. Can we go around the back end? While we're talking about lights.
Yes. Let's have a look at the back end.
Yes. We'll start with the old one. And I did like the stylised B that we saw in the lights there.
When the car came out, a lot of people really loved the design of this because it had the sort of, well, there was two things. Firstly, it had the B for Bentley, but secondly, it had GB, which not everyone noticed. So
I'd never noticed that.
B for Bentley. And that had a very nice, elegant back end. But the back of the new one is something else again.
Meet George Jetson.
This really is, and the back of this car, like the Continental GT, is modelled on a sort of a fighter jet afterburner. So when a jet flies off, you should see in the distance the circles of the afterburners.
So I say Jetsons, I think almost space age.
That's right, and that's what you've got there.
And that's part of a restyled tail. It's a lot more sculpted, isn't it?
It is a lot more sculpted. And again, it's more straight up and down. The back of the first Bentayga had a sort of more sloping rear, like the sloping front. And the new Bentayga is more squared off. The wheelbase is slightly wider at the back, but the tail lights are now all fully integrated into the boot. So when you unlock the boot, everything comes up together.
Right. And you talk about slightly wider, 2 centimetres, 20 millimetres is the increase in track, so that also helps handling.
That's right.
Because that's the thing about the Bentayga, is it did drive like a Bentley, and that was the bit that I guess amazed most people. I want to look in this boot here, because they moved to an SUV.
Yes.
The personality of the brand, and probably Bentley more than any other, they were able to take that feel of being in a Bentley and bring it to an SUV, whereas it was tough for some of the car brands to translate.
I think so, and a colleague of mine said that the Bentayga wants to be an SUV. I think some other SUVs, they want to be sports cars, or they want to be, they really want to be something else.
You say sports
but this
cars.
Actually wants to be a Bentley, and it wants to be an SUV.
They want to be, because there will be a speed version of this car, and I can tell you right now, it will be the fastest SUV, because that's what Bentley do. So And that's the thing, the Bentayga is always the fastest, the most comfortable, and also the most off-road capable of that sort of luxury SUV.
That's right.
They really didn't set the benchmark low at all,
well,
did they?
The off-road thing's interesting because if you get all-terrain on this car and you have underfloor protection, you have different ride heights, it's astonishing what this car can do. I mean, you'll see a few people online putting this car through its paces, and you may or may not want to do it with your own one, but it is very capable.
Hey, let's get through. You jump in the driver's seat, Derek, because we've talked about the outside. We can see the styling changes. Now, obviously, the inside, you can choose 4 seats, you can choose 7 seats. There's all sorts of options in the Bentayga. This one's 5 seats, but I want to focus on this dashboard because it has, just trying to check out what radio station you listen to there. But
there you go.
This has changed, hasn't it?
Yeah.
And really noticeable straight away digital dash.
That's right, yeah.
And this is lovely.
It is beautiful. So when you jump inside, what you first see is that the architecture, this part here is the same as the previous car. But then when you come to the central display, I think this bit here is really clever. When I first heard about this car, they said that they were going to fit a 10.9-inch screen in it, and I was thinking, well, how are you going to do that?
Had the ruler out, didn't you?
There isn't enough space. And this is clever. So what they've done is they've set the screen back in further, but created this lovely shelf here. So as you're driving along, often with screens, you're sort of your fingers hovering around, and it's pretty hard to concentrate. But what they've done here is put a shelf, so you can put your fingers on the shelf, and you can just touch away on that screen to your heart's content.
Now these vents, I love the lights on the outside, but I love this treatment here, and you'd be pleased. I hope you're impressed. I've done my research.
Yes.
Not only do they look better, but this is the sort of Bentley thing. These vents behind the scenes, they actually ionise the air as it comes out. So you actually breathe better in this than in other cars.
Yeah, it puts a static charge into the air as it comes through. So essentially it sort of vaporises all the bugs and things like that as it comes through. And this finish
like
here,
that nowadays.
Well, I know. This here as well was part of the new Flying Spur.
Right.
So you've got this beautiful new vent cluster here with this lovely clock in the middle and the 2 organ stops now in a Bentayga.
That's quite nice. So we've got pieces of Spur, touches of Continental, so there's a real family feel. And look, we talk about the tech, and there's tech everywhere, heaps of safety. This car will do its best to stop you from getting into trouble. But let's talk about the Bentley-ness of it. Every stitch is still done by hand.
Yes.
The leather is just perfect, and this veneer is incredible.
I think you're right. I mean, a lot of cars now have, well, there's 2 things. A lot of cars now have the technology in them, but I still think what Bentley do beautifully is execution of that technology. So you could have a head-up display, but how well is it fitted? How well is it engineered? How does it look? And how does it perform?
But there is a head-up display.
There is a head-up display. But where Bentley really excel is these things like this veneer. I mean, this veneer is actually a new standard veneer. It's a no-cost option. It's got a beautiful finish and just goes. I just think it looks great in this car with this particular colour split.
Just beautiful, and there's no hiding the craftsmanship inside this car. And you mentioned the tech. I know that this phone charger here also is a special system that increases the range of your phone where your phone's sitting on it. So there's a whole bunch of hidden tech.
That's right.
And we talked about the 1,000 new parts, but a lot of them we can't see.
A lot of them you can't see, but I still think, one of my sort of tests on a car is when you get into your own car, get inside it and give your dashboard a little push. Just push it like that and just see how much noise you can get out of it. Bentley, nothing. No creaking sounds whatsoever.
Hey, speaking of sounds too, incredible audio systems in these, and I can't believe what the standard system is 590 watts with 14 speakers, but there is a 20 speaker name system with, what's it, 1,700 watts?
That's right. Well, no, it's actually 2,200 watts.
What?
But
I get it.
But I tell you, well, with the new Bentayga, in the previous one we had signature audio, and that was an option. In the new Bentayga, that's now standard. And in the previous Bentayga, this what we call the city specification was an option with your 360 cameras and things like that. That's now standard. So not only is it a new model, they've also increased the standard specification on the car.
Brilliant. And now these are arriving here now. We have...
That's right. We've got some customers have already taken delivery, And we have
What's the reaction been?
Amazing. I mean, really. I mean, I would say that, of course, but
what do they say? They spend the money.
Yeah, the text messages have come out of the blue without me prompting how much they've enjoyed their new cars. And look, I mean, what is there to dislike? I mean, it's pretty difficult when you're in here to dislike it, isn't it?
We call these videos a walk around, but I'm sitting here and I haven't prompted Derek to get out because it's so damn comfortable. And the one thing, and if you get a chance to come into Bentley Auckland at 119 Great North Road, do stick your nose in, because the smell of the leather and everything in this car, it's like they've said, right, how do we find the best carpet? How do we find the best leather? Right. And I love the Bentley story about their leather, that they only get it from bulls from Northern Europe because there's no barbed wire. Right. It is the best leather. And it's the best leather, but it is also a byproduct of the meat industry. So it's not actually done for Bentley. It is a byproduct. So, you know, there is a responsible side. Well, there is a responsible side. Hey, speaking of that too, let's talk about not the elephant in the room, but you know, these are a big car. This is the V8. This is the first model, and we know how good this engine is. There is a speed version coming. We talked about that. But Bentley are also working on electrification. Oh,
they really are. I mean, it's going to be quite incredible. In fact, just 2 weeks ago, they did a global press release about the direction of the brand. So by 2026, all Bentleys will be available as either plug-in or full electric. So you'll have the option of plug-in hybrid or a full electric. And within 10 years from now, it'll be a fully electric car brand. So they are headed in a really fantastic direction. And in fact, the factory is already there. The factory, I mean, the rooftops of Bentley Motors are covered top to bottom in solar panels. So it's a fantastic, you know, the actual build process of the car is already there and far exceeding the standards set by the UK.
Yeah, I still feel bad that we haven't kept walking around this car, but this is so nice in here. Thank you so much, Derek. I can't wait to drive this.